Good afternoon. The topic for discussion today is Good afternoon. The topic for discussion today is suprasegmental features. I shall be talking about English phonetics and phonology and try to identify the suprasegmental features. In this lecture, I shall be focusing on the main suprasegmental features of English language with reference to the syllable, stress, stress rules, intonation, pitch, assimilation, and I shall also refer to elison. I will go for a detailed study of the stress and the stress rules that are there. Suprasegmental features, as I have told you earlier, in the phonological system, we have both the segmental and suprasegmental features. These are the two basic features. While on the phonemic level, we have the segmental features. On the suprasegmental level, we have other features that go beyond the basic structure of the phoneme. This phonological system that comprises of segmental and suprasegmental systems, especially in the spoken form of the language, we find that speech is composed of phonemes. Several phonemes are organized together, speech sounds are there, and they become a part of larger construction. In speech, these individual segments are not pronounced as individual units. Rather, these phonemes or segments that are studied under segmental phonology now become a part of larger construction. Suprasegmental features refer to these distinctive elements that are added to the basic segmental features of phonemes. So if we just keep on combining such features, and larger construction can be formed, and phonemes can be combined together in a form called syllable. Syllable, as we discussed earlier, contains a vowel as a core, as a nucleus, around which we have the clusters of consonants. So they form the basic unit of suprasegmental feature. A single stream of breath, the thrust, is used for the production of a syllable. Apart from the syllabic structure and the consonant cluster that contribute to the making of the syllable, we also have other features that are related. These features involved are features like stress, okay, accent. So we need some extra pitch in order to produce certain syllables. It involves loudness, it involves greater length of speech. So stress, pitch, and tone group. Along with tone group, we also have intonation and rhythm. Such suprasegmental features in phonetics and phonology therefore refer to a vocal effect that extends over from over more than one sound segment in an utterance. The basic unit of pronunciation in a connected speech, as we know, what is the basic unit in connected speech? We talked about that in the last class. Syllable. That is the basic unit of pronunciation in a connected speech, is the syllable. A syllable is a unit of pronunciation typically larger than a single sound or phoneme, and definitely it is smaller than a disyllabic word. A monosyllabic word may be pronounced at a time, while in case of polysyllabic words, syllable divisions are clearly audible. Suprasegmental analysis involves syllabification. So last day we practiced how to break the words into syllables, syllabification. We also went for the syllabic structure of the words. This process of division of a word into the component parts, into syllables. As through this division, the stress pattern is marked in speech. From a phonetic viewpoint, we can say that syllable is defined on the basis of articulatory effort needed in order to produce them. When we pronounce any word, we do not articulate the segmental phonemes independently. Rather, we usually break the word into small components, small syllables, and produce these syllables independently. I gave the example of examination. In the articulation of the word examination, we have 5 syllables. So, examination. Furthermore, we can see that syllables of the words do not receive same emphasis. All the syllables in a word, especially polysyllabic words, do not receive the same emphasis. This emphasis that is there on the syllable is called the stress. So in connected speech, more suprasegmental features are visible, like intonation, like rhythm, pitch, okay, the tone group. All these are visible in a connected speech. These are all called the suprasegmental features. So let us revise what we learned last day regarding syllable. So syllable, when we speak, we do not produce the segments of phonemes as individual items. We combine these items. One such combination of phonemes is called a syllable. With our basic intuition, we feel that what a syllable is. So when we say photo, we know that photo, the word photo has 2 syllables. Photography, photography has 4 syllables. On the other hand, photograph, photograph has 3 syllables. These syllables, one can easily observe, are made up of different phonemes, and these different phonemes are combined together, organized together to make the word. So while the number of consonants in the syllable vary, there is only one vowel in a syllable. So a syllable is made up of one vowel, and that vowel is essential for a syllable. Vowel we know is the core sound, the cardinal sound. So a sequence of syllable in a word, some syllables are stronger, more audible, and some syllables carry more stress than others. These stress syllables require greater muscular effort and therefore are louder and longer than unstressed syllables. In English language, the syllables differ in loudness and duration depending on the degree of stress they bear. So if we just try to define a syllable, how can we define a syllable? A syllable can be defined in auditory terms. We can realize that a string of sounds, some syllables are intrinsically more audible than the others, and the sonority is located in the center of the syllable. That is the vowel sound. So R.S. Stetson, while making an analysis of these structures of syllables, said that each syllable corresponds to an increase in air pressure. So when you pronounce words and break the words into syllables, you will find that each syllable is articulated with the help of air pressure, and there is an increase of air pressure. In order to produce each syllable, a burst of muscular energy is involved. The pulmonic egressive airstream from the lungs is released as a series of chest pulses, which can be felt and measured. In case of emphatic syllables, what happens? This increase in air pressure is easily detectable. A syllable has one vowel sound. One vowel sound is essential. Okay, and it should not be two. But when two vowels occur simultaneously, what happens? So two vowels, if they occur at all simultaneously, so we break the word into 2 syllables, and 2 syllables are uttered with a single muscular effort sometimes. But we can distinguish between these 2 syllables. The distinction on the basis of breath release cannot, however, be easily made. So we have different types of phonological structures. Say monosyllabic, single syllable words are there in English. When we are going for a syllabic structure, analysis of the structure of a syllable, we go for the analysis of the phonemes that are there in a syllable. V, capital letters, stands for vowels, and C stands for consonants. Each syllable has a vowel at the core, and this vowel, as I said earlier, is called the nucleus. And these probable structures are possible in English. say the structure having only a vowel sound, as in words I, O, A. In these words, we have only a single syllable, single phoneme, a vowel forming a syllable. So two phonemes can also make a syllable. So these are open syllables, means syllables that has either one vowel or end in a vowel sound. So two phonemes can join together to form a syllable, as in the words like be, she. These are the words where we have two phonemes forming a syllable. So go. So in these we have the last sound vowel, and these are called open syllables. So open syllables are those which have a vowel sound at the end, forming the nucleus. So there can be two consonants at the beginning and a vowel at the end. The structure can be CCV, as in draw, grew, grew, brow, slay. These are also examples of open syllable because the last sound is a vowel sound. So CCV. Then we can have CCCV, three consonant forming a cluster before a vowel sound, like stray, spree, screw, scree. The other form of syllable is called a closed syllable. In a closed syllable, we have a consonant at the end. So when we have a vowel at the end, that syllable is called open syllable. When we have a consonant at the end, that syllable is called closed syllable. So we have a structure like CVC in come, some, gone, boat. We can also have a structure like VC, vowel consonant structure, in words like am, all, up, and. There can be consonant, consonant, vowel, consonant in a closed syllable. In words like spin, state, plate, stool. So this can be further expanded. We can have three consonants at the beginning, a vowel as the nucleus, and a consonant at the end, forming a closed syllable. C, 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 V, C. As in words like scream, stream, screen, spleen. Such closed syllables can also be of CVCC structure, consonant, vowel, consonant, consonant, as in box, fox, band, bold. There can be also closed syllable with the structure CVCCC, three consonants at the end, as in tempt, tents, bands, tents. The closed syllable can also have a maximum of four consonants at the end. Okay, after the vowel sound, after the nucleus. In words like tempts, texts, the structure is CV, CCCC. An example of closed syllable. A vowel, therefore, in a syllable is the central item, and it is called the nucleus of a syllable. A syllable which ends in a vowel is called an open syllable. A syllable that ends in a consonant is called a closed syllable. This feature is also sometimes called free syllable. So closed syllable is sometimes also called a free syllable. The consonant that opens a syllable. So in some syllables we have a consonant that begins a syllable. That particular consonant is called releasing consonant. Okay, the consonant that comes at the end of a syllable is called the arresting consonant. So we have to remember two things. One, the classification of syllables as open syllable and closed syllable. Second, the classification of the consonant as releasing consonant and arresting consonant. So releasing consonant is a syllable where we have a consonant at the beginning. That particular consonant is called the releasing consonant. Similarly, a consonant at the end, if it is there, of a syllable, that consonant is called the arresting consonant. So beginning, releasing, at the end, it becomes arresting. The sequence of consonant at the beginning or at the end of a syllable is called consonant clusters. Okay, I repeat, the sequence of consonant at the beginning or end of a syllable is called consonant cluster. So a consonant cluster will not have a vowel CCC at the beginning or CCCC at the end. So these are the margins. At the center there is a vowel. So separately, when we have clusters of consonant, they are called consonant clusters. In case of certain words where we get a sequence of consonants in the middle belonging to two distinct syllables, the consonants are called abutting consonants. That means the consonant is not there, but in between the syllables, because of the arrangement of the phonemes, we tend to introduce a syllable. I gave that example last day, stranger. So stranger, two syllables are there. The spelling is stranger, but when we pronounce the word, we introduce an abutting consonant called d. Strange ja. Strange ja. That d sound is introduced. So the syllabic structure changes. It becomes CCC, VCC. Sorry, CCC, VCC, the first syllable. Sa, ta, ra, a, na, da. And then we have ja and a, consonant vowel. In the word stranger, this da is the arresting consonant of the first syllable, and ja is the releasing consonant of the second syllable. So this da is introduced as an abutting consonant, and it is the arresting consonant of the first syllable. Syllable division, as I said, is marked with a hyphen. When we go for a syllabic transcription, when we transcribe the word into syllables, or when we try to give a syllabic structure, we mark the syllable division with a hyphen. A consonant vowel CV sequence is perhaps the most common one. And if a syllable ends with a vowel, it is called open syllable. When a syllable ends with a consonant, yes, it is called, yes, a closed syllable. A CVC pattern is very common in English. The opening segment of a syllable is called the onset. Okay, and the closing segment of a syllable is called the coda. Again, you have to remember. So at the beginning of a syllable, we have the onset. At the close of the syllable, we have the coda. And the central syllable, center of the syllable is called the nucleus or the center. So in most of the syllables, the central element, the nucleus, central element is the vowel, the nucleus is the vowel, while the marginal elements are consonants. In some cases, of course, however, we find that the nucleus can be formed by consonants. In some words, even the nucleus of a syllabus can be formed by consonants. In words like kettle, rattle, little, cattle, mutton, cotton, sudden, ridden. So when I am pronouncing these words, mark the last sound, last syllable. Tala, in kettle, rattle, little, cattle. Turner, in mutton, cotton. Durner, in sudden, ridden. The phonemic structure is, of course, as it is visible, is consonant. But when we pronounce the word, we tend to introduce some kind of nucleus in that, and therefore the l sound is pronounced as a vowel, or the end n sound is pronounced as a vowel. L and n, these are pronounced as vowels, and we have a syllabic structure of consonant vowel. So the open syllable, the first one, ket, k, k, then tala is consonant vowel instead of consonant. So the second syllable of these words I just mentioned have two phonemes. The first of these are either a voiceless or voiced alveolar plosive, while the second phoneme is an n or an l. There is no sound in the second syllable. That can be classified as a vowel. We have just observed tala, turna, dana. So in these phonemes, there is no vowel So these cannot be classified as vowel. Both the consonants are produced with a stricture of close approximation, whereas we know that vowels are all produced with the stricture of open approximation. All the vowels and consonants, 15 consonants, are voiced consonants. But when the vowel is articulated, the oral articulators do not touch each other. Therefore, they are in open approximation. But the consonants mentioned here, la, na, these are pronounced with close approximation. Here, the consonants occupy the central positions in the syllable. When the consonant occupy the central position in a syllable, in absence of a vowel, okay, that consonant, okay, that particular consonant is called syllabic consonant. So we have a new type of consonant, la, 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 na, na, da, na. These are called syllabic consonants. Here the consonants occupy the central positions of syllables, and these are called syllabic consonants. While marking the syllabic structure, the last phoneme, that is otherwise a consonant, has to be marked as vowel. And in English, we have mainly syllabic consonants like la, ma, na, ra. So they can be pronounced as vowels and occupy the vowel position in some syllables. So among the suprasegmental features, syllabification is an essential component. So we have learned this, that syllabification is an essential component of the entire process of suprasegmental analysis, phonology. So proper articulation and sentence stress both are also related to the syllable. Now we come to the second most important part of the suprasegmental feature and go for a phonetic and phonological study of the stress. Several Indian languages like Sanskrit, Hindi, Bangla, these are all syllabic timed, and the syllables are said to occur at regular intervals of time. So almost equal emphasis is placed on the nucleus, the vowel, the central vowel of all the syllables. When we speak Bangla, when we speak Hindi, we will observe that we pronounce all the syllables distinctly, putting equal emphasis on all the syllables. And therefore, the language is syllabic timed. On the other hand, in English, we have a different type of stress system where emphasis is placed not on all the syllables. Rather, there is a preference for certain syllables on which the stress is placed. In Indian languages, the nucleus vowel of the syllable receives stress. So this is also common with English language. The nucleus will always receive the stress. But in case of Indian languages, all the syllables will receive stress. In case of English language, few syllables, okay, not all, will receive stress. The pronunciation in English is timed according to the length of the syllable. Okay, according to the length of the syllable. But in English, we have not just the length of the syllable, but also the stress pattern is involved in the process of pronunciation. So English language is a different type of language. Although it belongs to the Indo-European group of languages, it is quite distinct, different from Indian languages. The pronunciation in case of Indian languages is timed according to the length of the syllables. So therefore, this is called the syllabic timed language. English, on the other hand, is accentual syllabic language. So Indian languages are syllabic timed language, whereas English is accentual syllabic language. What does it mean? In accentual syllabic language, the pronunciation depends on the stress pattern. Okay, the pronunciation depends on the stress pattern. There is an equal time gap between two stress syllables, and the entire pronunciation depends on the stress pattern. The accentual syllabic language requires a dependence on the stress pattern that is based on received pronunciation. Received pronunciation is a pronunciation that is used specially by the people of England the south of England, near London, the language that is used in the public schools in England, the language that is used in the court, in the parliament, that pattern is called the received pronunciation. So in received pronunciation, there is a definite stress pattern. In the spoken form, all the syllables in English are not stressed. Stress is therefore a term used in phonetics to refer to the degree of force used in producing a syllable. So I define stress as a term that is used in phonetics to refer to the degree of force used in producing a syllable. The stressed and unstressed syllables can easily be distinguished. The stressed syllable is more prominent, louder, longer than the unstressed syllable. In phonetic transcription, the stressed syllable is marked with a raised vertical line. So that is the mark of the stressed syllable. On the top of the syllable, beginning of the syllable, on the top, we put a small mark, vertical line. That is called the stress. In case of stressed syllable, the prominence is loud and more audible than in the unstressed syllable. So you have done metrical scan, you remember. In case of scansion, you had put that stress mark on the top of the vowel sound, while that unstressed syllable was marked with an unstressed mark. That mark is there in case of prosody. But in normal phonetic transcription, we have the use of accent mark or stress mark at the beginning of a syllable. This stress mark is a vertical, raised vertical line at the beginning of the syllable. So it is in the upper side of the syllable. In case of stressed syllable, the prominence is loud and more prominence and more audible than the unstressed syllable. The pitch and length of the syllable also contribute to the quality of stress. Stress in connected speech may be equated with the notion or emphasis of strength attributed to the prominent syllables. In phonology, therefore, we have the main function of stress to provide a means of distinguishing degree of emphasis or contrast in sentences. What is this called known as? This is known as sentence stress. So I repeat again, the main function of stress is to provide a means of distinguishing degree of emphasis or contrast in sentences. As all the syllables in a sentence do not receive equal amount of stress, a term contrastive stress is often used in suprasegmental phonology to describe the process of identification of stressed syllable. So how will you identify whether a syllable is stressed or not? So you have to read aloud. You have to see, mark the emphasis that you are placing on the syllables. The syllable that will be receiving more emphasis will be louder and longer than the syllables that surround that particular syllable will be the stressed syllable. So with the help of a contrast, comparison, relative amount of loudness, pitch, length, you determine which one is a stressed syllable, which one is an unstressed syllable. In received pronunciation, this is almost prescribed because we cannot just change the pattern of stress system in English language. The emphasis or contrast in sentences clearly audible, and whenever we find that this emphasis is larger, emphasis is louder and longer, we say that that syllable is a stressed syllable. As all the syllables in a sentence do not receive equal amount of stress, we can use the contrastive stress in suprasegmental phonology to describe this process of identification of stresses or of stressed syllables. So in scansion also, an accent mark we have placed, an accent mark on the top of a syllable. Usually it is placed. Prominent syllable is identified. The core phoneme is identified, the nucleus of a syllable is identified and the sentence stress is made clearly audible. Let us read this line. A slumber did my spirit seal. So how will you recite this line? How will you read this line? A slumber did my spirit seal. Like this we will read this line. A slumber did my spirit seal. So we have identified which are the syllables that receive accent or stress. Slum, did, spe, seal. You must have marked that these words are important words in the line, performing either the function of auxiliary or noun or verb or adverb or adjective. So in Alexander Pope's famous poem, The Rape of the Lock, we have a sentence like this: puffs, powder, patches, Bible, billet. So you can identify which are the emphasized stress syllables. Puffs, emphasized; powder, patches, patch, emphasized; S, unstressed; Bible, by stressed; bul, unstressed; be, stressed; lay, unstressed; do, belay, do, stressed. So in prosodic morphology, the word is broken into syllables and we find the use of stress rule applied for pronunciation. In metrical compositions too, there is this conscious patterning of stresses and unstressed syllables. Stress is not solely a matter of loudness. It is also related to pitch and duration. You remember what is pitch? Pitch is determined by the vibration of the vocal cords. Higher is the vibration of the vocal cords, higher will be the pitch. The female voice has higher pitch because of the ability of the vocal cords to vibrate with higher frequency. So the voice becomes shrill. Similar type of pitch movement can be seen in the production of the stress with the enhanced vibration of the vocal cords. So higher is the vibration of the vocal cords, higher will be the pitch of the sound. So in scansion we use this, and in ordinary conversational language also we can use this type of pitch or duration. The strength of the syllable also depends on weak and the strong form of the syllables or words. So we have two forms, weak form and the strong form. Stress pattern also changes according to the grammatical function use of the word. For example, say in a word like water, water, when I use this word as a noun. Similarly, when I use the same word as a verb, I use water. I place emphasis on the second syllable. So in this disyllabic word, we have the use of noun and verb. When the word is used as a noun, the accent or the stress is placed on the first syllable. When the same word is used as a verb, stress falls on the second syllable. Similarly, when a word, the same word is used as noun and adjective, in case of noun, the accent will fall on the first. In case of adjective, the accent will fall on the second syllable. If a word is used as adjective and verb, the accent will fall on the first syllable in case of adjective. In case of verb, it will fall on the second syllable. So this is called a kind of stress shift based on the inflectional changes of the word or the derivational change of the word. If the class changes, the class of the word changes, we have this type of stress shift. More examples are there. For example, record. I'm going to record this session. I'm going to record this session. So I'm recording this session. Where am I placing the stress? I'm placing the stress on the second syllable. So this is going to be an excellent record. So here I am using the word as a noun, placing the stress on the first syllable. So noun, record, has stress on the first syllable. Verb, record, has emphasis on the second syllable. Such usage can be seen in words like absent, absent. So I will absent from this meeting, from this online class. How many of you are absent? So I'm using absent as a noun. When I use the same word as a verb, I'm going to absent from this class. I'm using this as a verb. Stress variations, both lexical stress or word stress, can be seen. Okay, lexical stress, word stress. Through the contrast, say when I say an increase of GDP is expected this year, my boss is going to increase my pay. So in the sentence we have increase, an increase of GDP is expected this year. So increase is used as a noun, and we have a lexical stress on the first syllable, increase, an increase of GDP. My boss is going to increase my pay. So here we have the stress on the second syllable. So the same word increase used as a noun receives stress on the first syllable. When the word is used as a verb, the stress is placed on the second syllable. So in so many analysis, say American structuralist analysis of the phonemes of the stress system, we find that stress can move from the strong to the weak form. So American structuralist tradition can identify 4 degrees of stress from the strongest to the weakest, and they call these degrees as primary stress, secondary stress, tertiary stress, and weak stress. In case of English RP, instead of 4, we have basically 3 classifications. Number 1 is primary stress, number 2 is secondary stress, and the third is unstressed, means there is no stress placed. Let us take, for example, where the primary stress and the secondary stress can be placed. While the primary stress is placed at the beginning of the syllable on the top, secondary stress is placed with the same vertical mark at the bottom of a syllable. Okay, so at the top of a syllable, if you place a small vertical mark, it becomes primary stress. At the beginning of a syllable, if you place a small vertical mark towards the bottom, okay, at the beginning but at the bottom, it is called the secondary stress. In word like examination, so repeat the word with me, examination. So which syllable has received highest prominence? I repeat the word, examination. Which syllable, which part of the word has received highest stress? Examination is a botheration for the civilization. Yes? Where do you place the maximum amount of stress? So I place stress on name, examination. Okay, so this is the primary stress placed on the syllable name. The secondary stress falls on another syllable, exa, za. In that syllable za, I place the secondary stress. In word like comprehensible, so am I comprehensible? Am I comprehensible? Am I comprehensible? So in this word, I am placing the primary stress on hen, while the secondary stress is placed on com. The first syllable receives the secondary stress, while the syllable hen receives the primary stress. In a word like temperamental, temperamental, repeat the word with me, temperamental, temperamental. So I place primary stress on men, secondary stress on tem. The first syllable receives the secondary stress, while the syllable men receives the primary stress. Temperamental. Another word Sophistication. 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 So you can identify. So I place maximum stress on K, that syllable, K, sophistication. And the secondary stress is placed on the second syllable, fis, sophistication, sophistication. So distinction is made on the basis of loudness and on the basis of length. So the contrast is made more audible on the basis of pitch, and this refers to the accent. So when we speak with a neutral accent, or when we try to speak English properly, we have to place special accent on these syllables. Some languages have a fixed stress or accent. Okay, like Indian languages, they have got fixed stress or accent. Accent is placed on all the syllables, and that is fixed. In case of English, the rules are there for the stress, but there is a kind of flexibility in the use of stress. In case of words that receive stress, okay, noun, verb, adverb, adjective, if they are monosyllabic or disyllabic, the stress remains same. But when the same word is used with affixation, we find the shift in stress. So in order to understand how the stress operates in English language, in this branch of study called phonology, certain stress rules are identified. And these stress rules are, of course, descriptive. But while describing the phenomenon of stress in English, we have the prescriptive form of stress rules. And these stress rules are usually followed by the speakers of English RP. Distinction is always made between linguistic contrasts involving loudness. Syllables that are more audible and longer than other syllables in a sentence are called stress syllables. Some of these stress syllables additionally involve pitch or accent. Okay, they might receive some special pitch or accent. Although some argue that variation in pitch and loudness are matters of accent, not stress, because contrast in pitch variation are normally involved. The various degrees of stress are assigned to the syllable of the words by means of repeated application of rules. These stress rules may be categorized as lexical stress, stress based on compounding of words, okay, stress rule based on the nuclear stress that is there in the words. In case of poetry or lyrical composition, this stress pattern may be further governed by metrical rules. According to the rhythm of the poem, the stress rule may vary. The stress is governed mainly by these particular rules. So first I called the lexical rule. What is this lexical rule of stress? This lexical rule or the stress rule is based on the item and its grammatical function. In some words that are used both as noun and adjectives, usually these words receive stress on the first syllable. When the same word is used as a verb, the word receives stress on the second syllable. The second type is that of compound. In case of compound word, the stress rule is based on the process of compound word formation. In most of the compound word in English RP, the primary accent falls on one of the two elements, usually on the first syllable. Say if I use the word bookshelf, where am I placing the stress? I am placing the stress on the first syllable. Crossword, crossroad. So I am placing the stress on the first syllable. So in case of in most compound words, the accent of the stress falls on the first syllable. In words like crossroad, crossword, bookshelf. There are other words formed with, say, ever or self. So whatever. So I have however. So I place stress on the second syllable. However, you can easily identify the stress is placed on a. However, whatever. So if I say herself, herself, myself, myself, I'm placing stress on the second syllable. Myself, herself, yourself. So I'm placing stress on the second syllable. So this is the second rule. Based on the compound, we have the change of stress. The third rule is related to the nuclear stress rule based on nuclear word. So words, according to the parts of speech, classified into broad grouping, two broad groupings. The first is the lexical category, where the words are independent in meaning, in grammatical function. Lexical category like noun, verb, adjectives, adverb. The second type of words are functional in nature or grammatical. Words that simply are, okay, words like interjections, conjunctions, prepositions, pronouns, even obligatory words like articles. Articles do not belong to the parts of speech. So articles. But in order to state the number of noun, we have to place an article before it. Determine the noun. So important words that contain independent meaning and function as noun, verb, adverb, adjective, these words usually receive stress on the most prominent syllable. If it is a monosyllabic word, it will receive stress. If it is a disyllabic word, like table, so where I am placing stress? I am placing stress on the first syllable. So noun, verb, adverb, adjective, these words will receive stress. Okay, when the words are monosyllabic, they will receive stress in that syllable. If it is a disyllabic one or polysyllabic one, the accent will be placed, the stress will be placed on the most prominent, loud, longer syllable. So other parts of speech, four parts of speech that I identified: interjection, conjunction, pronoun. Okay, what happens to these prepositions? These usually do not receive accent. I have used the word usually. These usually do not receive accent. But in case of poetry, what happens? In a polysyllabic preposition, we can place stress. According to the metrical pattern, the stress can be there. But usually in connected speech, prosaic speech, we do not place stress on these four kinds of words that function as conjunction, interjection, okay, preposition or pronoun. Articles are also not stressed. Words that function as article, a and the, these are also not stressed usually. The placement of primary stress in English is calculated by counting from the end of a word. Okay, the primary stress in a word falls on either the final syllable of a word, the penultimate syllable of the word, or the antepenultimate syllable according to the affixation. Disyllabic English word receive usually stress on the first syllable. If the word has two syllables, the word functions as noun, verb, adverb, adjective. We place stress on the first syllable. The fourth form of stress is called the metrical stress. So stress rule is based on meter and rhythm, especially in case of poetry, in case of lyric. In metrical composition, you know how to scan the lines. So in metrical composition, stress timed rhythm is based on fixed stress rule. It is also influenced by a kind of free stress shift. Usually in lyrical compositions, the stresses fall at a roughly regular interval in a line. Last day we were experimenting with that and we found that yes, there is a regularity. There's an equal time gap between stress syllables. Any line of a sonnet has 10 syllables, usually composed in a proper metrical pattern of 5 pairs of unstressed and stressed syllable. Shall I compare thee to a summer day? See, the pattern is there, IMB pattern is there. So shall is not stressed. Shall I compare the two? Some or stay. Thou art more lovely and more temperate. So unaccented, accented, unaccented, accented. So if we convert this into lyrical composition, sonnets are meant. Sonnet is derived from suono, that means little sound. It is a type of musical composition. So when we use this as a musical composition, we find that the sonnet is, or sonnet can be recited as a musical composition. Shall I compare thee to a summer day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. O mistress mine, so O mistress mine, where are you roaming? Roaming. So we have a pattern. So according to the rhythm of the line, we have the change in the stress pattern. My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more. So coral is far more red than her lips is red. Went to the sessions of sweet silent thoughts. I summon up remembrance of things past. So these are metrical stress. Metrical stress is also influenced by the rhythm. Pattern of prosody is called iambic. Similarly, we have trochaic pattern in poetry, referring to the pairing of stressed and unstressed syllable. In metrical phonology, a stressed foot refers to a string containing stressed and unstressed syllables. We can see this. Okay, stressed and unstressed syllable. So there are also three syllables in a foot. Usually we call them dactylic or anapaestic, amphimesar or amphibrachic. But there is always a gap, time gap between two stress syllables that is almost equal. The most prominent element is the stress foot, that is called the head. Therefore, foot division is made to mark the underlying metrical division. Last day Devojyoti was talking about beat. Okay, beat that divides the line into segments. Okay, that we talk about in poetry as foot division, separation of the line into some segments. So that beat also comprise the foot division. Tiger, tiger, burning bright. If you just place the beat, tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night. So we have this arrangement of the line, analysis of the line, along with the foot division. Sentence contain even examples of stress shift. I come to this point, stress shift feature of English. That is very common in English language. When we derive Japanese from Japan, the primary stress shifts from the final syllable of Japan onto the final syllable of Japanese. We find a tendency to place the secondary stress on the syllable which has a primary stress, and therefore we have this new feature in English that is called stress shift. So I am just using some sentences. Academy, academic, academician. You can find the shift, how the accent is shifting. Academy, academic, academic. The third is academician, academician. So in the first word, academy, I have placed my stress on ca. In the second word, academic, I have placed the stress on day. In the third verb, academician, I have placed stress on me. So this feature in English is called stress shift. Similarly, character, characterize, characterize, characterize. Okay. Third is characterization, characterization. See how the stress is shifting. Character, characterize, characterization. Furthermore, T. Balasubramaniam has listed some useful rules for word accentual pattern. In the book, a textbook of English phonetics for Indian students, you will find this in the chapter on stress. So first rule was that words with weak prefixes take the accent on the root. The second rule, inflectional suffixes like ed, es, ing, these inflectional suffixes do not affect the accent pattern. Third rule, derivational suffixes like dash, ag, ans, s, full, hood, is, ish, if, or li, ness, or, ship, yeah, tur, tour, all these zen, they do not affect the stress pattern. The stress pattern is not changed by adding these as suffixes. Similarly, the word ending in ion, ion, take the primary accent on the penultimate syllable. Rule number 5, words ending in dash ic, ik, ikal, ikali, eos, ial, iali, all these words take the primary accent on the syllable preceding the suffix. And the last rule identified by Balasubramaniam, words ending in ity, ity, take the accent on anti-penultimate syllable. So through this process of affixation, we find a regular pattern of stress shift in words in English language. So I will draw my conclusion today. The analysis of this suprasegmental feature, especially the stress. So I have tried to relate syllable, our discussion on syllable, with our discussion on stress today. In the next lecture, we will discuss how this syllable and stress contribute to the rhythm and intonation. Another suprasegmental feature is intonation, and how this intonation is also related to the rhythmic structure, to the pitch, how the speech can be broken into tone groups, and what are the different types of intonational features that we find in English poetry or English language. So if you have any questions, you can ask now. Thank you very much for your audience.